The weathered notice flapped in the desert wind, its crude charcoal letters stark against the bleached wood. Cook needed. Room and board provided. Kóhan's calloused fingers smoothed the paper one final time before he turned back to his empty dwelling. 20 years alone on this mesa had carved lines into his face deeper than the canyons below. The Apache ways taught patience, but loneliness was a wound that wouldn't heal. At dawn, she appeared on the horizon, a slender silhouette against the rising sun, her shawl billowing behind her. But Nánhida didn't come alone. Clutched to her breast were 2 small boys with wide, hungry eyes and matching faces. Could a solitary hunter who'd forgotten how to speak to another soul learn to welcome not just a cook, but a ready-made family into his silent world? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Morning light crept across the packed earth floor of Kóhan's dwelling, illuminating a life built on solitude and necessity. The single-room structure nestled against the mesa wall, its mud and timber construction weathered by 20 seasons of sun and storm. Against one wall leaned his prized possession, a hunting bow of exceptional craftsmanship, its juniper wood polished by years of handling, sinew string replaced countless times by his own hand. Kóhan moved with the deliberate economy of a man, accustomed to conserving energy. His movements followed the same pattern they had for 2 decades: check snares, gather water, prepare weapons, hunt. The rhythm rarely varied except when injured or ill. 3 weeks ago, a fall from a rock ledge while tracking bighorn sheep had left his right hand swollen and stiff, making even the simplest tasks painful. He sat cross-legged on a woven mat, wrapping a strip of rabbit hide around his throbbing hand. The injury had forced him to admit what pride had long denied. He needed help. Not permanently, he assured himself. Just until the hand healed, about the idea of sharing his space chafed against habits formed by years of isolation. After leaving his tribe's settlement, he'd found peace in the absence of human voices, in the simplicity of answering only to himself and the demands of survival. His gaze drifted to the corner, where his parents had once slept when this dwelling belonged to them. Memories of his mother cooking over the central fire pit, of his father teaching him to fletch arrows in the doorway's good light. These ghostly recollections had grown fainter with passing years. Sometimes he could barely recall their faces. What would they think of him now? Their only son, approaching his 50th winter, alone on the family land that should have echoed with the voices of children and grandchildren. The mesa had been their refuge after the tribe fractured. His father, once a respected elder, had chosen withdrawal over taking sides in the bitter leadership dispute. "We will keep to the old ways here," he told young Kóhan, away from their fighting. When fever took both parents in the same bitter winter, 25-year-old Kóhan had continued alone, honoring their memory through stubborn perseverance. Occasionally, he traded with other isolated families or at the distant trading post, but he spoke little and revealed less. Now he unfolded himself from the mat and moved to the doorway, surveying his domain. The plateau stretched before him, dotted with juniper and pinyon pine. In the distance, red rock formations caught the morning light. Below, a narrow trail wound from the valley floor to his mesa, the path a stranger would soon climb. His eyes followed a soaring hawk. Like the bird, he had claimed this territory as his hunting ground. Every ravine, every game trail, every seasonal water source was mapped in his mind. He'd learned to read the land as clearly as tracks in wet sand, where deer would bed down, where rabbits would burrow, where wild onions and pinyon nuts could be gathered in their seasons. Near the door stood his jerky rack, currently empty but ready for the next successful hunt. Hanging from the ceiling, dried herbs and roots gathered, according to his mother's teachings, awaited medicinal use. A stack of tanned hides represented months of patient work. Everything in the dwelling served a purpose. Nothing was kept. For mere sentiment. Yet, as he prepared a meager breakfast of corn cakes, Kóhan felt the empty space around him more acutely than usual. The silence, once comforting, seemed to press against his ears. Had posting that notice been a mistake? Would he regret allowing strangers to disrupt the careful order of his existence? He lifted his injured hand, flexing the fingers with a wince. The hunting would be poor again today. His winter stores were not yet sufficient, and he had pushed himself too hard trying to compensate for his damaged grip. "Just until I heal," he murmured to the empty dwelling. "Then they will go their way." He reached for his hunting knife, tested its edge with his thumb, and returned it to its sheath. Whatever came with the dawn, he would be prepared. He had survived alone this long. He could certainly endure the temporary inconvenience of company. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the distant cry of the hawk. Kóhan stepped out to face the day, unaware that by sunset, his carefully ordered world would never be the same again. Nánhida paused on the narrow trail, shifting the weight of the sleeping child on her back. The first light of dawn revealed how much farther they needed to climb. Her other son, Tarak, stumbled beside her, his small hand clutching her skirt. "Not much farther, little one," she whispered, though she had no way of knowing if this was true. The crude directions from the trading post had mentioned only the hunter's place atop the red mesa. Around her neck hung a small deerskin pouch, worn smooth by years of handling. Inside were her most precious possessions, herbs and roots gathered, according to her grandmother's teachings, each with healing properties known only to those trusted with such knowledge. The medicine pouch was her only inheritance, and it had kept her sons alive through fever and cough when others' children had not survived. Nilchi stirred against her back, whimpering softly as he woke. She reached behind to stroke his hair. "We are almost there." 3 days of walking had depleted their meager supplies. The handful of corn and dried berries remaining would not last another day. When she'd heard of the solitary hunter seeking help, it had seemed an answer to desperate prayers, shelter, and food for her children in exchange for her labor. "Mother, I'm tired," Tarak murmured, his 7-year-old face drawn with exhaustion. "We'll rest soon," she promised, scanning the path ahead. "See that flat area? We'll stop there." At the small clearing, she helped Nilchi down from her back and settled both boys on a sun-warmed rock. They huddled together, identical in their weariness, their small faces solemn. Born during a winter storm 6 winters ago, they had entered the world fighting for survival, tiny, fragile, but stubbornly alive, not like their father. Pain tightened her chest at the thought of Haske. His face was growing fainter in her memory, though the twins carried his features in their serious eyes and strong jawlines. 2 summers had passed since raiders had taken him, along with 3 other hunters from their small band. After his death, the whispers had started. Bad luck follows her. Her strange ways bring misfortune. The twins are marked by spirits. Gradually, she'd found herself with fewer invitations to communal meals. Her healing skills requested only in desperation. When the village relocated to winter grounds, no one had told her which direction they planned to travel. She'd awakened to find them gone, leaving behind only cold fire pits and empty spaces where lodges had stood. She opened her medicine pouch now, removing a small bundle of sage. "For protection," she told the twins, lighting it with her fire starter and wafting the smoke around them. The familiar scent calmed her racing thoughts. Rising, she redistributed their few belongings and helped Nilchi onto her back again. "Come, Tarak, just a little farther." As they rounded a bend in the trail, a dwelling came into view, a sturdy structure of mud, timber, and stone built against the mesa wall. Smoke curled from a hole in the roof. Someone was home. The boys tensed. Since their father's death, they'd grown wary of strangers. especially men. He will help us, Nánhida assured them, hoping her voice held more confidence than she felt. Outside the dwelling stood a tall figure, straight-backed despite his years. His hair, streaked with gray and worn longer than was common, was tied back with a leather cord. Deep lines etched his copper face, and his eyes, when they met hers, revealed nothing. Nánhida stopped a respectful distance away. "I've come about the notice," she said, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. "I am Nánhida. These are my sons, Tarak and Nilchi." The man's gaze moved from her face to the twins. Something flickered in his expression: surprise, uncertainty, perhaps displeasure. He had not expected children. "I am Kóhan," he said finally, his voice rough from disuse. "You've traveled far?" 3 days' walk from the eastern valleys," she answered. "Our band has moved on without us." Understanding passed across his weathered face. He knew what that meant in their world: rejection, abandonment, the severing of tribal bonds. He gestured toward the doorway. "Come, you must be hungry." Simple words, but to Nánhida they sounded like salvation. Inside the dwelling, Nánhida's practiced eye took quick inventory. A central fire pit with cooking stones, storage baskets along one wall, weapons and tools arranged with careful precision. No unnecessary items, no decorative touches. A place of function, not comfort. The twins pressed against her legs, their eyes darting about the unfamiliar space. "Sit," Kóhan gestured toward woven mats near the fire. As the boys hesitated, he added, "I have rabbit stew." Nánhida guided her sons to the mats. "Thank you for your kindness," she said formally. Kóhan grunted, moving to the fire where a clay cooking pot nestled among the coals. The pot was well made, but plainly functional, its surface darkened by years of use. With his good hand, he stirred the contents while favoring his injured right hand. "You're hurt," Nánhida observed. "It will heal," he replied curtly. She watched as he awkwardly ladled stew into wooden bowls. His movements were stiff, revealing pain he tried to conceal. When he handed her the bowls, their fingers brushed briefly. His were calloused and rough, marked by years of work and weather. "Eat," he told the twins, who looked to their mother for permission. She nodded, and they took the food eagerly. "Slowly," she cautioned, "small bites." The stew was simple rabbit, wild onions, and some unidentifiable roots. But after days of travel with little food, it tasted like a feast. The twins ate with focused intensity, their small faces solemn. With concentration, Kóhan observed them from his place across the fire. "How old?" he asked abruptly. 7 winters, Nánhida answered. "Born during the great storm." Recognition flickered in his eyes. Everyone remembered that winter storm, when snow had drifted higher than a man's head and many elders had crossed to the spirit world. "Twins are rare among our people," he commented. She tensed, waiting for the usual superstitious comments about bad fortune or spirit meddling. Instead, he simply added more wood to the fire. When the boys finished eating, Tarak, always the bolder one, asked, "Where do you sleep?" "Here." Kóhan indicated a bedroll in the corner. "You and your brother can sleep there." He pointed to an alcove screened by a hanging hide. "Your mother will have the storage room. It's small but dry." The matter-of-fact way he assigned spaces, as though their presence were already settled, surprised Nánhida. She had expected more questions, more negotiation. "I can cook," she offered, feeling the need to establish her usefulness, "and mend. I know plants for healing and flavor." Kóhan nodded toward his injured hand. "Fell from a ledge. Makes hunting difficult. May I?" she asked, approaching carefully. After a moment's hesitation, he extended his hand. She examined it gently, noting the swelling and discoloration. "Broken?" she asked. "Just twisted. Hurts to grip. I have herbs that will help, for pain and swelling. Something like relief crossed his face, quickly masked. Tomorrow, he said. You're tired now. The twins, bellies full and warmed by the fire, were already growing drowsy. Nilchi's eyes drooped, and he leaned against his brother. I'll show you where to put your things, Kóhan said, rising. The storage room was little more than a niche in the rock wall, but it had been swept clean and a sleeping mat placed on the floor. A small air hole in the ceiling would allow smoke to escape if she wanted a tiny fire for warmth. It's perfect, she said, meaning it. After nights under the open sky, walls felt like luxury. When they returned to the main room, the twins had curled together on a mat, fast asleep. They won't disturb your hunting equipment, Nánhida promised, noting how Kóhan's gaze lingered on precious boughs and tools hanging nearby. Children touch things, he said, not accusingly, but as simple fact. They've been taught respect for a hunter's tools. Their father, her voice caught. Their father was strict about such things. Kóhan studied her face. Was? Taken by raiders. 2 summers passed. He nodded once, acknowledging her loss without empty words of sympathy. In their world, death was common, mourning private. After a moment, he said, Rest now. Tomorrow we'll speak of duties. As Nánhida settled on her sleeping mat that night, the twins breathing softly beside her, she'd move them to share her small space. She listened to Kóhan's movements in the main room, the scrape of coals being banked, the soft thud of moccasins set aside. Then silence. She closed her eyes, sending silent thanks to the spirits. For tonight, at least, they had shelter, food, and safety. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Dawn arrived with the twins' whispered voices. Kóhan, accustomed to waking in silence, found himself listening to their muffled conversation through the woven room divider he had erected the previous evening. The screen made of willow branches and yucca fibers now separated his sleeping area from the main room, a concession to privacy he hadn't needed when living alone. Is he awake? One twin asked. Don't know, the other replied. Mother said not to bother him, but I'm hungry. We have to wait. Kóhan rose quietly, dressed, and stepped around the screen. The boys froze, caught in mid-conversation. Good morning, he said formally. They stared at him with identical expressions of wariness before the slightly taller one, Tarek. He remembered spoke. Good morning, sir. The formality from such a young child struck him as both proper and oddly sad. Your mother sleeps still? Nilchi nodded. She's tired from carrying me. Kóhan moved to the fire pit, stirring the coals and adding kindling. Come, help me prepare morning meal. The suggestion visibly surprised them, but they approached cautiously. He showed them how to arrange the kindling to catch the spark, explaining, in simple terms, why the smaller pieces must go first. Like building a house, Nilchi observed. Small sticks first, then bigger ones. Yes, exactly so. When flames caught, Kóhan reached for his water container, but Tarek was already there. I can get water. I'm strong. The spring is just beyond those juniper trees, Kóhan directed, handing him a smaller container sized for a child's hands. Nilchi, you can help me find the cornmeal. As the boys set about their tasks, Nánhida emerged from the storage room, her hair freshly braided, her face showing momentary confusion at finding her sons already engaged in morning chores. You should have woken me, she said, moving quickly, to take over the cornmeal preparation from Nilchi. The boys are helping, Kóhan said simply. They do well. A hint of pride crossed her face. Their father taught them to be useful before he was taken. When Tarek returned with water, they worked together to prepare a simple breakfast of corn cakes. The domestic routine felt foreign to Kóhan, the extra hands, the quiet chatter between mother and sons, the need to consider others in the preparation of food. After they ate, Kóhan rose. I must check my snares. You will stay here today and rest. I can help, Nánhida offered. The boys need to learn boundaries, he finished. For her, this dwelling has rules. He looked directly at the twins. No touching weapons without permission. No wandering beyond sight of the dwelling without an adult. No wasting water or food. The boys nodded solemnly. Tarek spoke for both of them. Yes, sir. And one more thing, Kóhan added, his voice softening. Slightly. You may call me Kóhan. Not sir. Something in Nánhida's expression eased at this small concession. While you're gone, we'll clean and organize. Would that be acceptable? Kóhan hesitated. His possessions were arranged precisely as he preferred them. Don't move the hunting gear, he finally said, or the tools. The rest ... as you wish. With that, he gathered his checking pouch and knife, nodding once before departing in the forest, tracking game paths and checking snares. Kóhan found his thoughts repeatedly returning to the dwelling. Would the boys obey the boundaries? Would their mother rearrange his carefully ordered world? The unfamiliar worry distracted him, nearly causing him to miss signs of deer passage. When he returned midday with 2 rabbits and a grouse, he paused. Outside his dwelling, sounds emerged that had been absent for decades. A child's laugh, the rhythmic scraping of a cleaning stone, soft singing in the ancient tongue. Inside, he found the main room transformed. The floor had been swept, cooking. Implements arranged neatly on a new shelf, fashioned from a plank he'd forgotten he owned. His bedding had been aired, and fresh pine boughs laid in the corners for fragrance. The twins looked up from where they sat sorting his collection of feathers by size and type, a task he'd long neglected. We're helping, Nilchi announced. Nánhida appeared from the storage room, arms full of his rarely used winter clothing, now brushed free of dust and folded neatly. I hope we haven't overstepped, she said, carefully watching his reaction. Kóhan surveyed the changes. Everything essential remained where he needed it. The rest had simply been improved. He held up the rabbits. These need skinning. It wasn't quite approval, but Nánhida's smile suggested she understood what went unspoken. Boys, go gather some wild onions from that patch I showed you. Stay within sight of the door. As they scampered out, Kóhan realized something else had changed. The dwelling now felt inhabited, not merely occupied. 5 days passed in an emerging pattern. Mornings began with shared meals. Days filled with separate tasks, Kóhan checking traps and hunting. Nánhida cooking and organizing. The twins exploring within boundaries and helping with simple chores. Evenings brought them together around the fire, mostly uncomfortable. Silence. On the 6th morning, Kóhan announced, Today I hunt deer. The boys looked up from their breakfast with sudden interest. Small game had sustained them, but winter approached. A deer would provide meat for many weeks, bones for tools, hide for clothing and repairs. Your hand, is it strong enough? Nánhida asked. Her herbal poultices had reduced the swelling, but she'd felt the damaged tendons beneath his skin. Kóhan flexed his fingers, testing his grip. Strong enough. The admission came reluctantly, but slower than before. The twins exchanged glances. Tarek spoke first. Can we watch? No, Nánhida answered immediately, but Kóhan studied them thoughtfully. Not the hunt itself, but perhaps ... the tracking. Kóhan, they're too young, Nánhida protested. I was younger when my father first took me tracking, he replied. They must learn someday. She wanted to object further, but recognized the opportunity. This represented not just for the twins to learn valuable skills, but for Kóhan to see them as more than temporary inconveniences. Only if they obey every instruction, she conceded. Every word, Kóhan agreed, looking sternly at the boys. Or you return immediately. The twins nodded solemnly, barely containing their excitement. An hour later, They set out, Kóhan leading with his hunting bow slung across his back, the twins following in carefully placed footsteps, Nánhida bringing up the rear. The boys mimicked Kóhan's deliberate movements, his quiet tread, his watchful stillness. "Look," Kóhan whispered, crouching to indicate marks in the soft earth. "Deer passed here." "How do you know it's deer?" Nilchi whispered back. "See the shape? 2 points in front, like this." He traced the outline with a twig. "And these smaller marks behind?" The twins leaned close, absorbing every detail. Tarek pointed to another print. "This one looks different." "Good eyes," Kóhan nodded. "That's rabbit." Always know what makes each track, or you waste time following the wrong prey. For nearly an hour, he led them in a slow circle around the lower slopes, showing them how to read the land, which plants deer favored, where they bedded down, how to tell fresh sign from old. The boys absorbed everything, asking quiet, thoughtful questions that revealed quick minds. When they reached a clearing with clear deer trails leading into denser forest, Kóhan stopped. "From here I go alone." Disappointment shadowed the boys' faces, but they nodded without protest. Nánhida extended her hand. "Come, we'll gather herbs while we wait." "Watch for my signal," Kóhan told her. "If successful, I'll need help bringing the meat back." With that, he slipped into the forest, moving silently despite his size. The twins watched until he disappeared among the trees. "Will he get a deer, Mother?" Nilchi asked as they gathered mint leaves. "If anyone can, it's Kóhan," she answered, realizing she truly believed this. In less than a week, she'd come to respect his skills and quiet competence. 2 hours passed. The twins grew restless, but didn't complain, helping Nánhida fill her gathering basket with useful plants. When a single, low whistle sounded from the forest edge, they all looked up. Kóhan emerged, his face grave but his eyes holding quiet triumph. "I need help," he said simply. Following him into the trees, they found a young buck lying on the forest floor, a single arrow protruding from its chest. The twins stopped, suddenly solemn at this concrete evidence of death. "It didn't suffer," Kóhan told them, perhaps sensing their discomfort. "A clean shot." "Thank you, brother dear, for giving your life so we may live," Nánhida said softly, offering the traditional hunter's thanks. She touched each boy's shoulder. "We must honor what has been given." Kóhan nodded approval at her words, then unsheathed his knife. Now comes the hard work. The process of field dressing the deer was messy but necessary. Kóhan explained each step, his deep voice matter of fact. To Nánhida's surprise, the twins watched without squeamishness, even helping to hold back the hide as Kóhan worked. When the time came to transport the meat back to the dwelling, Kóhan fashioned a drag sled from branches and the deer's own hide. All 4 worked together, Kóhan and Nánhida pulling while the twins steadied the load from behind Got as they approached the dwelling. Sweat-soaked and tired but successful, Nánhida realized something had shifted. They had worked as a unit, each contributing according to ability. The fresh deer hide stretched now on Kóhan's drying frame represented not just food security, but their first true collaboration. That night, as they ate fresh liver and tender cuts from their shared bounty, even Kóhan seemed more relaxed, his usual reserve softened by collective achievement. The clouds gathered throughout the afternoon, dark and heavy with promise. Kóhan watched them building over the western peaks, his experienced eye measuring their threat. "Storm coming," he announced as Nánhida hung strips of venison on the drying rack, a big one. She followed his gaze to the darkening horizon. "How long?" "Before sunset, we need to prepare." The next hours passed in focused activity. Kóhan secured external items, the drying racks, water collection vessels, tools that might blow away. Nánhida moved foodstuffs to higher storage baskets in case of flooding, while the twins gathered extra firewood and stacked it in the driest corner of the dwelling. As the wind picked up, bringing the first spatters of rain, Kóhan stood in the doorway, frowning at the roof. The south corner leaks. Has leaked for 2 seasons. We can place containers to catch the water, Nánhida suggested. He shook his head. Not enough. This storm will be heavy. They worked quickly, moving sleeping mats and essential items away from the vulnerable corner. Outside, the daylight dimmed prematurely as thunderclouds swallowed the sun. The first lightning flashed, followed by thunder that seemed to shake the very walls. Nilchi flinched, pressing against his mother's leg. It's just the sky spirits talking, she soothed, though her own expression showed concern as the rain intensified, drumming against the roof with growing insistence. Within minutes, water began seeping through the packed earth and branch ceiling. First in drops, then in a steady trickle that quickly formed a puddle on the floor. More containers, Kóhan ordered, pulling out every vessel they could spare. Despite their efforts, water soon overwhelmed their defenses. A particularly fierce gust of wind tore at the ceiling, widening the breach until water poured through. In a miniature waterfall. The food stores, Nánhida exclaimed, seeing water dangerously close to their precious supplies. All 4 worked frantically, moving items to safety, using every available hide and blanket to divert the flow. Outside, the storm raged with increasing fury, lightning illuminating the dwelling in stark flashes, thunder cracking directly overhead. When a particularly loud thunderclap shook the walls, both twins cried out in alarm. Tarak's eyes were wide with fear, while Nilchi covered his ears, tears streaming down his face. Kóhan, in the midst of positioning a large basket to catch the worst of the leak, paused. The boy's fear seemed to trigger some long-dormant memory. Without thinking, he knelt beside Nilchi. "When I was a boy," he said, his deep voice cutting through the storm noise, "my father taught me to count between lightning and thunder. Number tells how far away the storm spirit travels." Nilchi lowered his hand slightly. "Really?" "Yes. Watch for the next flash, then count with me until the thunder comes." The next lightning bolt cut across the sky. 1.2. 3. Double quotes. Kóhan counted steadily, the twins joining hesitantly. They reached 7 before thunder rumbled. 7 counts, Kóhan explained. The storm moves away from us now. You sure? Tarak asked, still clutching his brother's hand. Yes, the worst has passed over us. Though the rain continued to pour, and water still found its way through their compromised roof, the counting game provided distraction. After each flash, all 4 counted together, confirming Kóhan's prediction as the gap between lightning and thunder gradually increased. When they reached 20 counts, Nilchi's fear had noticeably subsided. "The storm spirit is running away," he declared with childish certainty. "Yes," Kóhan agreed, surprised to find himself almost smiling at the boy's imagination. "Running far away." As the thunder receded into distant rumbles, they took stock of their situation. The floor was sodden in places. Water pooled in every available container, and several valuable items had gotten wet despite their best efforts. "We'll need to repair the roof tomorrow," Kóhan said, surveying the damage. "If the rain stops," Nánhida added. "It will." He tested the air with an outstretched hand. "The wind shifts already." The twins, their fear forgotten, now treated the indoor puddles as an adventure, carefully emptying the fullest containers outside the door and returning to position them under persistent drips. As darkness fell completely, they huddled near the fire, wrapped in dry blankets. The usual evening silence gave way to conversation as Kóhan, prompted by the twins' questions, shared stories of other great storms he had weathered on the mesa. Once, lightning struck so close it split a pine tree outside this very dwelling, he told them, his storyteller's voice emerging rusty but effective. The sound was like the world breaking in two. "Were you scared?" Nilchi asked, yawning despite his interest. "Yes," Kóhan admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. "Even warriors feel fear. Courage is acting despite the fear, not living without it." Nánhida, listening quietly, caught his eye across the fire. Something passed between them, recognition perhaps, of shared wisdom or common purpose in guiding these young ones. That night, as rain continued its gentler percussion on the roof, and the repaired leak dripped steadily into containers, all four slept in the main room near the fire's warmth. The storm had forced a physical closeness they might otherwise have avoided for many more weeks. Morning revealed the storm's full impact. Muddy rivulets crisscrossed the ground outside the dwelling. A large juniper branch had fallen nearby. Inside, despite their efforts, dampness permeated corners and belongings. "The roof cannot wait," Kóhan declared after their morning meal. "Today we repair." Nánhida nodded agreement. "What do you need?" "Pine pitch, fresh branches, new binding cords." He tested his injured hand, frowning at its stiffness. "And 2 good hands." "I have those," she offered, "and the boys can gather materials." Soon all four were engaged in the repair effort. The twins ranged nearby, collecting straight branches under Nánhida's supervision. Kóhan, meanwhile, climbed cautiously onto the roof to assess the damage. The leak originated where 2 support beams had shifted, creating a gap in the packed mud and branch construction. As he probed the damaged area, loose material crumbled beneath his fingers, widening the hole. "Hand me the new branches," he called down. Nánhida passed them up, along with a container of pine pitch she'd mixed with beeswax to create a waterproof sealant. Working carefully, Kóhan began weaving the fresh branches into the roof structure. The task required precision and strength. Though his injured hand had improved, it still lacked full dexterity. After struggling to secure a particularly stubborn branch, he muttered a rare curse. "Let me help," Nánhida called, already climbing the ladder they'd positioned. Kóhan started to object the roof. Had always been his domain alone, but practicality won out. "Mind your step. The beams will support. You there and there." He pointed to the soundest areas. Together they worked, his experience guiding her nimble fingers. When it came time to apply the sealant, Nánhida's smaller hands proved better suited to reaching the awkward spaces. "Like this?" she asked, pressing the sticky mixture into a seam. "More firmly," he instructed. "It must withstand the next rain." The sun climbed higher, beating down on the exposed roof. Sweat beaded on Kóhan's forehead, dripping into his eyes. As he wiped it away, his foot slipped on the damp surface. He grabbed for support, his hand closing around a jagged edge of broken branch. Pain shot through his palm as the wood sliced deeply into his flesh. Blood welled immediately, dripping onto the roof. "Kóhan!" Nánhida exclaimed, seeing his expression change. He pulled back his hand, now streaming blood. "It's nothing," he grunted, but the depth of the wound belied his words. "Down. Now?" she ordered with unexpected authority. "That needs attention." Inside the dwelling, she directed him to sit by the fire while she retrieved her medicine pouch. The twins watched wide-eyed as blood dripped between his fingers onto the earthen floor. "Does it hurt bad?" Nilchi asked. "I've had worse," Kóhan replied, though the throbbing pain suggested otherwise. Nánhida returned with her deerskin pouch, emptying its contents on a clean hide. Dried herbs, small bundles of roots, pouches of powder, she selected several items. With practiced certainty. "Water," she instructed Tarak, who hurried to comply. First, she cleaned the wound, her touch firm but gentle. Kóhan watched her work, noting the focused intensity of her expression. This was not the hesitant woman who had arrived at his dwelling, but a healer confident in her skills. It needs stitching, she said, examining the gash. Kóhan nodded once. He'd stitched his own wounds before, but never one-handed. From her pouch, Nánhida produced a slender bone needle and sinew thread. "I'll be quick," she promised. The twins moved closer, fascinated rather than repulsed by the procedure. "Mother healed many in our village," Tarak explained proudly. "Even the chief's son, when others thought he would die." Nánhida didn't comment, but her hands remained steady as she began closing the wound with neat, precise stitches. Kóhan kept his face impassive, though each puncture sent fresh pain through his hand. "You've done this before," he observed, "many times." Her voice remained soft, focused. "My grandmother taught me, her mother before her. The knowledge passes from woman to woman." As she worked, she hummed quietly a healing song Kóhan hadn't heard since childhood. The familiar melody triggered a sudden, vivid memory. His mother, tending a wound on his father's arm, singing this same tune, her face bearing the same look of concentration Nánhida now wore. When the stitching was complete, Nánhida applied a poultice of chewed herbs mixed with pine resin. "This will draw out any poison and help the flesh knit," she explained, wrapping the hand in a clean strip of hide. "Thank you," Kóhan said simply. Their eyes met, and something shifted between them, respect deepening into something less definable. For the first time, he had allowed himself to be truly vulnerable in her presence, accepting her care without reservation. "The roof," he began, "can wait until tomorrow," she finished firmly. "The weather will hold." That evening, as Nánhida prepared a special tea to fight infection, Kóhan watched her hands graceful yet strong, capable of both nurturing and healing. He found himself wondering what other skills and stories those hands carried, what other songs might accompany their work. 2 weeks after the storm, their food stores dwindled despite careful rationing. The venison was gone, preserved roots running low, and Kóhan's injured hand still limited his hunting. "We need supplies," he announced one evening. "Tomorrow, we go to the trading post." The twins perked up immediately. "All of us?" Tarak asked, excitement evident in his voice. Kóhan nodded. "All of us." Nánhida looked up from her mending, her expression cautious. "The journey is long, a day's walk. We'll stay one night." Though she said nothing more, Kóhan sensed her unease. Later, as the twins slept, he found her sorting through their few possessions. "What troubles you about the trading post?" he asked. Directly, she hesitated. "People will see us together. They will assume ... Does it matter what they assume?" "It could," she said softly. "For you," Kóhan considered this. Among their people, a man taking in a widow with children would be seen as claiming them making a family. He hadn't considered how their arrangement might appear to others. "We need supplies," he repeated finally. "What people think is not my concern." Morning found them preparing for the journey. Kóhan packed trading goods, dried herbs, a fine deerskin, arrow points he'd napped from flint. Nánhida wrapped flat bread and dried fruit for the trail. The twins, thrilled by the adventure, darted about gathering their few belongings. "Stay close on the trail," Kóhan instructed as they set out. "Mountain lions have been seen near the lower ravine." The twins nodded solemnly, positioning themselves between the adults as they descended the mesa path. The day was clear, the autumn air crisp with approaching winter. Along the way, Kóhan pointed out useful plants and animal signs. Continuing the education he'd begun during the deer hunt. By midday, they reached the valley floor. The trading post lay another few hours ahead. As they rested in the shade of a cottonwood grove, Nánhida braided the twins' hair and straightened their clothing. "We should appear respectable," she explained, catching Kóhan's questioning look. He understood then. At the trading post, they would be seen, judged. For her and the boys, appearance could mean the difference between respect and disdain. Wordlessly, He untied his own hair, combed it with his fingers, and rebound it neatly. He brushed dust from his leggings and straightened the fringed shirt he wore for trading journeys. Nánhida nodded approval, a small smile softening her usually solemn face. The trading post appeared on the horizon by late afternoon, a cluster of mud brick buildings, surrounded by a wooden palisade. Even from a distance, they could see horses tethered outside and smoke rising from several fire pits. Market day dot as they approached the open gates. Nánhida drew the twins closer. "Remember your manners," she murmured. "Speak only when spoken to." Inside the palisade, the central area bustled with activity. Apache traders mingled with Mexican merchants and occasional white trappers. Goods of all kinds, blankets, metal tools, pottery, foodstuffs were displayed on hides or simple wooden tables. Their entrance drew curious glances. Kóhan was known but rarely seen, his solitary habits the subject of occasional gossip. Now he arrived with a woman and children, all walking together like a family. Kóhan. A grizzled trader named Santos approached, his Spanish accent thick despite years among the Apache. "It has been many moons, my friend." Kóhan nodded greeting. "I need flour, coffee if you have it, metal needles." Santos's eyes flicked to Nánhida and the twins. "I see you are no longer alone on your mountain. This is good. A man needs family." Before Kóhan could correct this assumption, another trader joined them. "These boys look strong," the man observed. "Your sons?" An awkward silence fell. The twins looked to Kóhan, uncertain how to respond. "They are in my care," Kóhan said finally, neither confirming nor denying the relationship. Nánhida stepped forward, her voice steady. "We need cloth, if you have it, and perhaps shoes for growing boys." Her practical intervention shifted attention to business matters. Soon their bundle of trade goods was spread before Santos, its value being assessed with much discussion and bargaining as Nánhida negotiated for cloth. Demonstrating unexpected skill in trading, Kóhan found himself watching the twins interact with other children. Though initially shy, they soon joined a game involving stone markers and much shouting. Their laughter rare at the dwelling rang freely here. A group of women, noting Nánhida's presence, approached with measured curiosity. Kóhan tensed, remembering her mention of rejection by her former band. But these women, strangers to her past, welcomed her conversation, particularly when they learned of her healing knowledge. "My youngest has a persistent cough," one woman confided. "What would you recommend?" As Nánhida shared remedies, her face animated with confidence, Kóhan realized how isolated she too had been on his mesa. Here, among people, she blossomed like a desert flower after rain. When their trading was complete, their original goods replaced by flour, beans, dried fruit, needles, thread, small shoes for the twins, and a length of sturdy cloth, Santos offered them shelter for the night in his storage hut. "For the family of my friend," he insisted, again making assumptions Kóhan didn't correct. That night, as the twins slept deeply after their exciting day, Nánhida spoke quietly across the darkness. "Thank you." "For what?" Kóhan asked. "For not sending us away when they called us family." Her simple gratitude stayed with him as he drifted toward sleep. The unfamiliar sounds of the trading post, a reminder of the wider world beyond his mesa. World he had once rejected, but which now, unexpectedly, had found its way back to him. The trading post journey marked a turning point. Upon their return to the mesa, the dwelling somehow felt different, more firmly established, as a shared space rather than Kóhan's territory, temporarily housing visitors. The twins moved with greater confidence. Nánhida arranged their new supplies with a homemaker's authority, and even Kóhan found himself more at ease with their presence. Winter settled over the mesa, bringing shorter days and bitter winds. Developed new routines, mornings spent on indoor tasks, midday hunting or gathering during the warmest hours, evenings of mending and storytelling by the fire. The twins thrived under the stability, growing visibly stronger on regular meals and constant attention. One crisp morning, as snow dusted the ground outside, Kóhan was teaching the boys to make snares using rabbit sinew. Their small fingers worked diligently, copying his movements with increasing skill. Nánhida sat nearby, transforming their new cloth into winter shirts for the growing boys. The domestic scene shattered at the sound of approaching footsteps, too heavy for deer, too purposeful for wandering elk. Kóhan rose immediately, reaching for his knife. "Stay inside," he ordered, moving to the doorway. Through the doorway's opening, they saw a figure approaching on the path, a man dressed in traditional Apache hunting clothes, his moccasins leaving clear tracks in the light snow. Around his neck hung a distinctive necklace of bear claws, and at his waist, a decorated knife sheath gleamed with turquoise inlay. Nánhida gasped softly. The twins froze, their small faces suddenly pale. "Who?" Kóhan asked quietly. "Hasto," she whispered, "from my husband's band. The one who—" She stopped, eyes fixed on the approaching figure. Kóhan stepped outside, positioning himself before the dwelling entrance. His posture conveyed neither welcome nor outright hostility, just watchful readiness. The visitor stopped several paces away, assessing the situation with calculating eyes. "So the rumors are true," he called. "The hermit takes in strays." Kóhan remained silent, waiting. "I come from the winter camp," Hasto continued. "Some there wondered where the widow and her demon twins disappeared to." His tone made clear he hadn't come from concern. "They are under my protection," Kóhan stated flatly. Hasto laughed, a harsh sound against the winter stillness. "Protection? From what? The spirits already cursed them when the twins were born. Then they took her husband for his weakness in keeping them." Inside the dwelling, Nánhida moved protectively closer to her sons. Through the doorway opening, she could see both men, Kóhan tall and solid as the mesa itself, Hasto leaner, but with the coiled tension of a snake preparing to strike. "What do you want?" Kóhan demanded. "To warn you." Hasto took a step closer. "That woman brings death to men who shelter her. Her husband wasn't the first. In her father's band, 2 young men died after seeking her hand." "Coincidence," Kóhan said, though he glanced briefly toward the doorway. "The twins are marked," Hasto insisted. "Born with calls over their faces, a sign they belong to the spirit world, not ours. They should have been exposed at birth." From inside, Tarek made small, wounded sound. Nánhida pressed her hand over his mouth, whispering fierce reassurances. Kóhan's voice hardened. "The children are healthy. The woman is skilled and honorable. Your superstitions have no place here. You know nothing of her." Hasto's hand moved to his knife hilt. "Did she tell you how her husband really died? Not taken by raiders, poisoned by her hand." The accusation hung in the frigid air. Inside, Nánhida stood abruptly, pushing the twins behind her as she moved to the doorway. "Lies," she said, her voice stronger than Kóhan had ever heard it. "Haskell was killed by raiders. 3 others died with him. Convenient that no bodies were ever found," Hasto countered. "Just your word." "The word of 4 hunters who tracked the raiders," she corrected. "Including your own brother." Hasto's expression flickered, revealing the falsehood, but he recovered quickly. "A man should know what kind of woman he harbors, especially one who arrived so conveniently after he injured his hand." Kóhan's patience ended. "You've delivered your message. Now go." "You defend her without even questioning?" Hasto's face twisted with disgust. "The mountain has softened your mind, old man." Kóhan's hand moved to his knife. "Last warning." For a tense moment, Hasto seemed ready to escalate the confrontation. But something in Kóhan's stance, the absolute certainty of his threat gave. The younger man paused. With a contemptuous gesture, he backed away. "When misfortune comes, remember you were warned," he called, turning to descend the path. They watched until he disappeared around the bend. Only then did Kóhan turn to Nánhida, his face unreadable. Inside, the twins huddled together on their sleeping mat, eyes huge with fear. They had recognized Hasto, that much was clear, and his presence terrified them. "Is he gone? Truly gone?" Nilchi whispered. "Yes," Kóhan assured him, though his gaze remained on Nánhida. "He won't return today." Unspoken questions filled the dwelling. As Nánhida comforted the twins, she felt Kóhan's evaluating gaze. The fragile trust they'd built now balanced on the edge of a knife. "Later," she said quietly, meeting his eyes, with determined calm. "When they sleep, I will tell you everything." Kóhan nodded once, then moved to secure the dwelling entrance against both weather and unwelcome returns. Whatever truth emerged tonight would determine all their futures. Night descended early, winter darkness wrapping around the dwelling like a heavy blanket. The twins had finally succumbed to sleep after hours of restlessness, their small bodies curled together for comfort. Kóhan had maintained his distance all evening, speaking little, his face giving away nothing of his thoughts. Now they sat across, the fire from each other, the flames between them casting shifting shadows on the walls. In her hand, Nánhida held a smooth river stone small enough to fit in her palm, polished by water until it gleamed even in the dim light. "This was my grandmother's," she began, turning the memory stone between her fingers. "She gave it too. Me when I became a woman, saying truth is like water over stone. It shapes everything it touches, but the shaping takes time." Kóhan waited, silent but attentive. "You want to know if I killed my husband," she said directly. "I did not. But Hasto believes I did because it serves his purpose." She took a deep breath, the memory stone warm in her palm. "Haska, my husband, was cousin to the band's chief. When the chief died without sons, there were two possible successors, Haska and Hasto. The band was divided in their support. And you were caught between them," Kóhan observed. "Yes, Hasto had wanted me for his wife before I chose Haska. He took my rejection as a personal insult." Her fingers tightened around the stone. "When I bore twins, Hasto was the first to whisper about bad omens and spirit marks. The calls he mentioned?" Nánhida nodded. "A rare occurrence, but not unheard of. My grandmother had seen it twice in her long years as a midwife. But Hasto used it to sow doubt about the boys and about me." She paused, collecting her thoughts. "When the boys were 5 winters old, raiders attacked 3 hunting parties from our band. 14 men went out. Only 4 returned, all from different parties, all with the same story. They had been ambushed by Mexican bandits seeking horses and weapons. Haska was among those lost," Kóhan said. "Yes, his body was never recovered, but a returned hunter had seen him fall." Her voice remained steady through long practice at containing this pain. "The survivors tracked the raiders for 2 days, finding blood trails and items belonging to our men. There was no doubt. Yet Hasto claims otherwise. He began his whispers amoon after Haska's death, when I refused to become his wife as is. Sometimes our custom with widows." Her expression hardened at the memory. "He said I had poisoned Haska with herbs from my medicine pouch, then invented the raider story with the help of men loyal to my husband. A serious accusation," Kóhan noted, "one he could never prove. But suspicion is a powerful weapon. Slowly, people began to avoid me, to keep their children from playing with my sons." The memory stone moved faster between her fingers. "By last spring, we were living at the edge of the camp. When the band moved to summer grounds, they simply left without telling us." Kóhan studied her across the flames. "And you believe Hasto orchestrated this?" I know he did. He wants to be chief, and any connection to Haska's bloodline threatens his position. The twins, as Haska's only sons, could someday challenge him. She met Kóhan's gaze directly. He would rather see us dead than risk that future. You think he would harm children? I think he already has, through isolation and fear. Physical harm would be next, if he thought he could manage it without consequences. Silence fell between them, broken only by the crackling fire and the twins' soft breathing from their corner. Kóhan's face remained unreadable, his thoughts hidden behind the mask of stoicism he had perfected over decades of solitude. Finally, he spoke. Why tell me all this now? You've been here nearly 2 moons. Nánhida looked down at the memory stone in her palm. At first, survival was all that mattered. Then, I began to trust you, to believe we might be safe here. She closed, her fingers around the stone. But I should have told you sooner. You had the right to know who you were sheltering. And if I believe Hasto's version? Kóhan asked, his voice neutral. Then we will leave at first light, she answered without hesitation. I would not stay where we're unwelcome or distrusted. Kóhan rose and moved to the dwelling entrance, checking that it was secured for the night. His back to her, he said, I've known men like Hasto, men who twist truth to serve ambition, men who fear what they cannot control. He turned, his face illuminated in profile by the firelight. I've also learned to judge character through actions, not accusations. You have shown nothing but honesty and hard work since arriving here. Relief washed through Nánhida, though she kept her expression composed. The twins, Kóhan continued, have suffered enough from adult conflicts. They will not be uprooted again because of one man's bitterness. Thank you, she said simply. Kóhan nodded once, then moved toward his sleeping area. Before disappearing behind the room divider, he paused. Hasto will return. When he does, we will be ready. In the quiet that followed his departure, Nánhida placed the memory stone beside her sleeping, a talisman of truth spoken and received. For the first time since Haska's death, she felt the fragile stirring of something she had thought lost forever, security. The confrontation with Hasto altered something fundamental in their household. Though he didn't speak of it directly, Kóhan began spending more time with the twins, his instruction extending beyond occasional hunting lessons to daily teachings. One morning, after the snow had temporarily retreated, he called the boys outside. In his hands, he carried something that made their eyes widen to small wooden boughs, perfectly sized for children's arms. Today you begin to learn the hunter's path, he announced, his deep voice solemn with ceremony. Nánhida watched from the doorway, her expression a complex mixture of pride and concern. These were her babies still in her mind. Yet she understood the necessity of what Kóhan offered, not just survival skills but identity, belonging, the knowledge that had sustained their people for generations. Are they not too young? She asked quietly, as the twins examined their boughs with reverent fingers. I was younger when my father began teaching me, Kóhan replied. Boys must learn early, before bad habits form. After a pause, he added, unless you object. The deference to her authority as their mother, so different from the ways of many men, warmed her. No, it is good. Their father would have wanted this. The lessons began with respect for the weapon. Kóhan showed them how to hold the boughs, how to string them, how to protect them from moisture and damage. He explained the sacred relationship between hunter and tools, how the bow was an extension of the arm, the arrow an extension of the eye and will. A thoughtless hunter goes hungry, he told them. A careless hunter dies young. The twins absorbed every word, their usual restlessness replaced by focused attention. They practiced drawing the string without arrows until their small arms trembled with effort. Again, Kóhan would say, until it feels as natural as breathing. Days passed in this pattern. Between other duties, Kóhan would take the boys a short distance from the dwelling to practice. Tarek showed natural talent, his aim instinctively true. Nilchi struggled more with accuracy, but demonstrated remarkable patience, adjusting his stance repeatedly until he found the optimal position. One evening, as snow began falling again, Nánhida found Kóhan carefully repairing one of the small boughs where a hairline crack had formed in the wood. "You're good with them," she observed, settling nearby with her mending. Kóhan's hands continued their careful work. "They learn quickly. Not just the teaching. You understand them, their differences, their needs." She selected a thread that matched the hide she was. "Stitching. Tarek needs challenge. Nilchi needs encouragement." Kóhan nodded, slightly surprised by her perception of his methods. Different spirits in identical bodies. Their father struggled with that, Nánhida admitted. He expected them to be the same in all things. A comfortable silence fell between them as they worked on their respective tasks. Finally, Kóhan spoke again. "Tomorrow, if weather permits, I will show them tracking. Will you join us?" The invitation surprised her. "You want me there?" "Some plants only women gather. They should learn those signs, too." He tested the repaired bough, bending it slightly to ensure the crack held. "And 4 eyes see more tracks than 2. The next day dawned clear and cold. After morning chores, all 4 bundled in their warmest clothes and set out, Kóhan leading them to a sheltered valley where game still moved despite the winter season. "Look here," he said, crouching beside a set of delicate tracks. "Rabbit. See how the back feet land ahead of the front?" The twins knelt in the snow, studying the pattern with serious concentration. "And these?" Kóhan pointed to different marks nearby. "Bird," Tarek guessed. "Yes, quail. Good for eating, but hard to catch without a special net." As they moved through the valley, Kóhan pointed out dozens of different tracks: deer, fox, badger, mouse, explaining the habits and patterns of each animal. The boys absorbed everything, occasionally spotting signs before they were pointed out. "Mother, look!" Nilchi suddenly called, indicating a place where the snow was disturbed beneath a juniper. "Something dug here." Nánhida examined the spot. "Yes, likely looking for these." She carefully extracted several small roots from the loosened soil. "Medicine for fever. Good eyes, Nilchi." The boy beamed at her praise, standing taller. Throughout the day, Kóhan noticed how the twins increasingly turned to him for approval, their eyes seeking his nod of confirmation, even when Nánhida also offered praise. It was a subtle shift, but significant, the natural looking toward a male figure that had been absent from their lives. Late afternoon found them circling back toward the dwelling. The twins ran ahead, playing a tracking game. Kóhan had taught them, leaving the adults to walk together in companionable silence. "Thank you," Nánhida said eventually. "For what?" "For becoming what they need." Her voice held emotion she rarely displayed. "A boy needs a father, or someone like one." Kóhan looked ahead at the twins, now pretending to stalk each other through the snow. They make it easy. They want to learn. "It's more than learning." She touched his arm briefly. "They're beginning to look at you the way sons look at a father." The observation settled deep in Kóhan's chest, stirring feelings long dormant. He had never expected to be anyone's father, had resigned himself to dying without descendants to remember his name or carry his knowledge. Yet here were 2 boys, already carrying pieces of him in how they held their boughs, how they studied tracks, how they moved more quietly through the forest with each passing day. "I have much to teach them still," he said, his voice rougher than usual. "Yes," Nánhida agreed, "and many years to do so." Winter deepened, bringing shorter days and longer nights. The family settled into a rhythm that became increasingly comfortable shared. Meals, divided chores, evenings of storytelling, and skills teaching. Without discussion, they had become a functioning unit, each member contributing according to ability and need. One evening, as wind howled outside and snow piled against the dwelling walls, Kóhan observed the twins practicing knot tying by firelight. Their fingers, once clumsy with childhood plumpness, had grown dexterous through daily practice with bows and snares. "They've changed," he commented to Nánhida, who sat nearby grinding dried herbs. She nodded, following his gaze. "They grow stronger, more confident. This place has been good for them." The simple statement carried weight beyond its words. This place's home, now theirs as well, had transformed from reluctant shelter to nurturing haven. "And for you?" Nánhida asked, her voice carefully neutral. Kóhan considered the question with characteristic thoroughness. "Yes," he finally answered. "It is good not to be alone." Later that night, after the twins had fallen asleep, Kóhan retrieved a small bundle from beneath his sleeping mat and brought it to where Nánhida sat by the dying fire. "I've been thinking," he began, uncharacteristically hesitant. "Among our people, when a new family forms or when children reach certain milestones, there is ceremony." Nánhida's hands stilled on her mending. "Yes, we have formed something here." He gestured to encompass the dwelling and its occupants. "Not traditional, perhaps, but real." "Yes," she agreed softly. "Real." Kóhan unwrapped the bundle, revealing an eagle feather pristine white at its base, deep brown at its tip, marked with significant notches along its spine. Such feathers were rare, sacred, used only for the most important ceremonies. "This was my father's," he explained. "Given to him by his father. It has witnessed many family blessings." Nánhida's eyes widened at the significance of what he proposed. "A blessing ceremony? For us? For the dwelling? For what we've built?" "Here," he met her gaze steadily. "For the boys." Emotion tightened her throat. Among their people, such ceremonies were normally conducted by tribal elders, surrounded by extended family and band members. They had none of that here, just themselves. Isolated on their mesa. "Who would perform it?" she asked. "There is an elder Tashima who lives 3 valleys east. He helped my father build this dwelling many seasons ago. He has no band now, but he remembers the old ways better than most." "You would invite him here? After so many years alone?" Kóhan nodded once. "For this purpose, yes. For several heartbeats." Nánhida sat motionless, absorbing the enormity of what he suggested. A blessing ceremony would mark them, publicly and spiritually, as a family unit. Not merely convenient arrangements, but bound in ways recognized by their people and their ancestors. "The twins will need to understand what this means," she said finally. "Yes, we will explain together." The preparations consumed the next 4 days. Kóhan journeyed alone to find Tashima, returning with the ancient elder riding double on Kóhan's rarely used horse. Meanwhile, Nánhida and the twins cleaned the dwelling thoroughly, prepared special foods, and gathered the sacred herbs needed for purification. Tashima's arrival caused a sensation. Nearly blind with age, his face deeply etched by years and weather, he nevertheless radiated vigor and purpose. The twins regarded him with wide-eyed fascination, especially when he addressed them in the most formal dialect of their language, words they recognized but rarely heard. "So these are the sons of your heart," the elder said to Kóhan after observing the household interactions. "They are," Kóhan confirmed. Tashima nodded approval. "And the woman she honors the old ways? She remembers what many have forgotten." The ceremony began at dawn on the 5th day. The dwelling had been swept with sage smoke to purify it. Special symbols were painted above the doorway and at each cardinal direction. The 4 inhabitants wore their finest clothes, hair freshly braided with meaningful ornaments dot in the center. Of the dwelling, Tashima created a sacred circle using cornmeal. Within it, He placed significant items a stone from the dwelling's foundation, water from their spring, seed from their food stores, and at the center, Kóhan's eagle feather. Spirits of this place, the elder began, his voice surprisingly strong. Ancestors who watch from beyond. Today we mark the forming of new bonds, not of blood alone, but of choice and heart. The twins knelt solemnly at the circle's edge, coached, in their responses by Nánhida. Kóhan stood tall behind them, his hand resting lightly on each small shoulder. These children, born of one man, now stand in the shadow of another, Tashima continued. These adults, once walking separate paths, now share a single fire. The ceremony proceeded with ancient prayers and responses. At the culminating moment, Tashima raised the eagle feather, passing it through the smoke of sacred herbs before presenting it to Kóhan. This dwelling is blessed, the elder proclaimed. This family is recognized by ancestors, by spirits, by all who honor the old ways. As Kóhan accepted the feather, the twins looked up at him with expressions of solemn wonder. Something profound had happened, something they sensed without fully understanding. Later, as feast foods were shared, and Tashima told stories of long-ago days, Nánhida found herself watching Kóhan the man who had reluctantly opened his door to strangers and now had opened his heart to family. The blessing had changed nothing tangible about their circumstances. Yet everything felt different, more permanent, more meaningful, blessed by tradition and choice alike. The days shortened as winter tightened its grip on the mesa. Morning frost lingered in shaded areas until midday. The spring ran lower, its edges rimmed with ice. Birds departed for warmer regions, leaving the juniper trees silent and still. The deep cold comes soon, Kóhan observed one evening, studying the sky's particular shade of steely gray. We must prepare more thoroughly than in previous years. Nánhida understood his meaning without elaboration. One person could survive winter with minimal preparations, eating less, sleeping more, enduring discomfort. A family with growing children required greater abundance and comfort. What do we need? She asked practically. More firewood, more preserved food, better insulation for the dwelling. He glanced at the twins, who were practicing finger weaving nearby, and warmer sleeping arrangements. The next days became a flurry of activity. Kóhan split and stacked firewood until the pile stood taller than the twins. Nánhida inventoried their food stores, calculating how much more dried meat and preserved fruit they would need to last until spring. The twins, eager to contribute, gathered pine nuts from the forest edge and helped Nánhida process the last of the fall roots for storage. Even at their young age, they understood the stake's winter in the mountains forgave no lack of preparation. At one morning, Kóhan announced, "Today we hunt for winter hides." This would be their most ambitious hunting expedition yet. They needed at least 2 deer for their meat stores, but more importantly, they needed the hides for winter bedding and clothing. Nánhida prepared travel food while Kóhan readied his hunting equipment. The twins, sensing the importance of the occasion, helped without being asked, their small faces serious with responsibility. "Can we come?" Tarek asked as Kóhan checked his arrows. "Not for the hunting," Kóhan replied, "but you and your brother will help bring back what the spirits provide." They departed at dawn, Kóhan alone for the actual hunt. Nánhida and the twins following hours later to a predetermined meeting place where they would help process and transport the kill. The day proved successful beyond expectations. Kóhan's arrows found 2 deer, a young buck and a doe, providing not only meat, but the crucial hides they needed. The family worked together to prepare the carcasses, the twins helping with tasks appropriate to their size and strength. As they worked, Nánhida found herself watching Kóhan's hands strong and sure as he demonstrated proper cutting techniques to the boys. Those same hands that had once been reluctant to reach for connection. now guided small fingers with patient instruction. That night, too tired to return to the dwelling, they camped beneath a rocky overhang. After a meal of fresh liver and heart, the hunter's privilege, they settled around a small fire, the night air growing increasingly chill. "Will it snow tonight?" Nilchi asked, looking up at the cloudy sky visible beyond their shelter. "Perhaps," Kóhan answered. "The air has the taste of snow." Without discussion, they arranged their sleeping places closer together than usual, sharing body heat against the cold. The twins nestled between the adults, small furnaces of warmth in the chill night. As darkness deepened, Nánhida found herself lying awake, aware of the 3 breathing patterns around her, the twins' quick, shallow breaths and Kóhan's deeper rhythm. A family's breath, rising and falling together beneath the vast sky. Morning brought the season's first significant snowfall. They awoke to a transformed world-white blanketing the ground, clinging to juniper branches, softening the harsh contours of rock and ravine. "Beautiful," Nánhida murmured, standing at the edge of their shelter. "And dangerous," Kóhan added practically. "We must return quickly." Loading the precious meat and hides on their improvised travois, they set out for the dwelling. The snow made travel slower, but not impossible, their moccasins leaving clear tracks in the pristine white. The twins, initially delighted by the snow, soon grew tired as the wet cold seeped through their leggings. Without complaint, Kóhan hoisted first one boy and the other onto his broad shoulders, carrying them for stretches of the journey home. By the time they reached the dwelling, the snow fell heavily. Inside, they found the fire banked exactly as they had left it. Kóhan quickly built it up, while Nánhida helped the twins change into dry clothing. That evening, as wind drove snow against the walls and the meat hung safely from the ceiling beams, Nánhida unfolded a large, carefully preserved bundle of winter blanket she had been weaving in secret moments over many weeks. "For all of us," she said, spreading it before the fire. The blanket, woven from rabbit fur and plant fibers, was large, enough to cover all 4 of them. Into its pattern, she had worked symbols of protection and family unity, designs passed down through generations of Apache women. Kóhan ran his hand over the intricate weaving. "This is masterwork," he said, genuine appreciation in his voice. "I had good materials," she replied modestly, "and reason to make it well." The twins, already drowsy from the day's exertion, curled beneath the new blanket like fox kits in a den. Nánhida settled nearby, leaving space beside her that Kóhan, after a moment's consideration, filled. "The sleeping arrangements you mentioned," she said softly, so as not to wake the already slumbering twins. "Is this what you meant?" "Practical for winter," he answered, his voice equally low. "Body heat preserved is firewood saved." "Practical," she agreed, though both recognized the arrangement represented more than mere practicality. As snow continued to fall outside, insulating the dwelling in its frozen embrace, the family slept together beneath Nánhida's woven blanket symbol of their interwoven lives and shared future. Winter passed in peaceful isolation. The family remained largely self-contained on their mesa, venturing down only for occasional trading. The twins grew noticeably taller, their faces losing baby roundness as they developed the leaner features of boys approaching their 8th year. Spring's arrival came new activity gardening in the small plot beside the dwelling, hunting fresh game after winter's scarcity, repairing weather damage to their home. They worked together with the easy coordination of a family long established, rather than one formed by circumstance less than a year before. The messenger arrived on an unusually warm morning in early spring. Kóhan spotted him first, a young man making his way up the mesa path, carrying a staff wrapped with colored bands that identified him as an official tribal runner. "Someone comes," he announced, setting aside the arrow he'd been fletching. Nánhida emerged from the dwelling, shading her eyes against the bright sun. "Who?" Band messenger. Official business. The twins, practicing with their bows nearby, immediately stopped and moved closer to their mother, a habit of caution, born from past rejection. When the messenger reached the dwelling clearing, he greeted Kóhan with formal respect. "I bring word from the Council of Elders," he announced. "They request your presence at the spring gathering." Kóhan's expression revealed nothing, but Nánhida sensed his surprise. In all his years of solitude, the council had never summoned him. "What business?" Kóhan asked directly. The messenger shifted uncomfortably. "They did not share details with me. Only that you should come." His eyes flickered to Nánhida and the twins. "With your family." After the messenger departed, promised food and rest at the trading post below, silence hung between the adults. "We don't have to go," Nánhida said finally. "The council has no authority over your mesa." Kóhan considered this. "True, but ignoring a council summons creates enemies we don't need." "Is it about us?" Tarek asked, his young face serious. "About Mother and Hasto? Perhaps," Kóhan admitted. "Or perhaps other matters." They discussed possibilities late into the night after the twins were asleep. The timing seemed unlikely to be coincidence, almost exactly a year since Nánhida. And the boys had arrived at Kóhan's door. "Hasto may have brought complaints against us," Nánhida suggested. "He has influence with certain elders." "Or Tashima may have spoken of our blessing ceremony," Kóhan countered. "He still commands respect despite his isolation." In the end, they decided to attend. Refusing would only fuel suspicion and gossip. Better to face whatever awaited them directly. 5 days later, they approached the spring gathering site, a broad valley where several bands converged seasonally. Colorful lodges dotted the landscape. Cook fires sent smoke spiraling into the clear sky. Children played in groups while adults prepared for ceremonies and trading. Their arrival drew immediate attention. Kóhan, known but rarely seen, walking openly with a woman and children beside him, it was a sight to stir curiosity. Whispers followed them as they made their way to the central council area. "People stare," Nilchi murmured, pressing closer to his mother. "Let them," Kóhan replied calmly. "We have nothing to hide." The Council of Elders had gathered in a large, open-sided lodge. 7 men and 2 women, the oldest and wisest from Sun. Various bands sat in a semicircle, their faces impassive as Kóhan led his family forward. At the center sat Chief Nako, known for his fairness and adherence to tradition. Beside him, to Nánhida's dismay, sat Hasto, not yet an elder, but clearly present as an interested party. "Kóhan, son of Mahane, you honor us with your presence," Chief Nako began formally, "and you bring guests to our gathering." Before Kóhan could respond, Hasto spoke. "Not guests, Chief. A woman who abandoned her band, bringing misfortune with her." Murmurs rippled through the onlookers, gathered around the council lodge. Nánhida held her head high, though her heart pounded with apprehension. "The woman and children are under my protection," Kóhan stated, his deep voice carrying authority despite his years outside tribal politics. "They are my family now." This declaration caused greater stir. Chief Nako raised the council's speaking stick, signaling for silence. "This is why we have called you," the chief explained. "Word has reached us of a blessing ceremony performed by Elder Tashima, of a family formed outside traditional arrangements. Some," his gaze flickered toward Hasto, "have expressed concerns." "What concerns?" Kóhan asked directly. An older female elder spoke up. "That proper protocols were not followed. That band leaders were not consulted. That a woman left her people without permission." "I was abandoned by my people," Nánhida corrected, speaking despite protocol that typically prevented women from addressing the council directly. "Left behind when the band moved, with no word of their destination." Hasto rose halfway, his face darkening. "She lies." She chose to remain behind after poisoning her husband. Enough! Chief Nako raised the speaking stick again. We are not here to resurrect old accusations. We seek only to understand whether proper respect for tribal ways has been maintained. The questioning continued for nearly an hour. The elders inquired about the circumstances of their meeting, the blessing ceremony, the twins' education in tribal ways. Through it all, Kóhan answered with simple dignity, neither defensive nor apologetic. When the formal questioning ended, Chief Nako announced, "The council will consider this matter in private. Return at sunset for our decision." As they walked away from the council lodge, Nánhida whispered, "What decision could they possibly make? They have no authority over your dwelling." "Not about the dwelling," Kóhan replied quietly. "About recognition, whether our family stands acknowledged by the people or apart from them." Though he didn't say it aloud, both understood the implications. For the twins especially, belonging to the wider tribal community, even at a distance, would shape their future identity and place in the world. The council's decision had been favorable unexpected support from Elder Tashima, and several women who remembered Nánhida's healing skills had outweighed Hasta's objections. They returned to the mesa with their family bond officially recognized by tribal custom, a weight lifted from their collective shoulders. Spring advanced into early summer. The garden flourished under Nánhida's care. The twins grew stronger, their hunting skills improving under Kóhan's patient tutelage. Life settled into comfortable rhythms, marked by seasonal tasks and small daily pleasures. The illness arrived without warning. One morning, Nilchi woke complaining of headache and sore throat. By midday, his skin burned with fever. By evening, he lay listless on his sleeping mat, eyes glazed, breath coming in labored gasps. "It came on so suddenly," Nánhida murmured, pressing a cool cloth to the boy's forehead. "Yesterday he was fine." Kóhan hovered nearby, his usual stoicism failing to mask his concern. What can be done? Nánhida was already gathering herbs from her medicine pouch. Fever tea first, then poultice for his chest. Through the night, they took turns sitting with Nilchi. Tarek refused to leave his twin's side, maintaining a worried vigil even as his own eyes drooped with exhaustion. "You should rest," Kóhan told him gently. "Your brother needs you strong. What if he—" Tarek couldn't finish the thought. His young face creased with fear. "He fights hard," Kóhan assured him, "like a true Apache warrior." But as dawn approached, Nilchi's condition worsened. His breathing became more labored, his fever climbing despite Nánhida's remedies. Most alarming, he began to mumble incoherently, his head thrashing from side to side as if plagued by invisible tormentors. "The fever enters his mind," Nánhida sighed, fear evident in her voice. "My remedies aren't working." Kóhan had seen such sickness before, swift, merciless, often fatal to the very young and very old. "What else can be tried?" Nánhida hesitated, then spoke. "There is a plant rare, grows only near hot springs in the eastern valleys. My grandmother used it for fierce fevers when nothing else helped." "How far?" Kóhan asked immediately. "Half a day's ride." "But I cannot leave him. I'll go." Kóhan was already reaching for his travel pouch. "Describe this plant exactly." As Nánhida detailed the plant's appearance and location, Kóhan prepared for immediate departure. He rarely used his horse, preferring to travel on foot, but speed was now essential. Every moment counted. 3 leaves in this pattern, Nánhida showed with her fingers. Purple flowers if in bloom. Roots smell like pine when crushed. Kóhan committed the details to memory. "Care for him until I return. I will find this plant." Before departing, he knelt beside Nilchi's mat. The boy's eyes fluttered open briefly, unfocused and bright with fever. "Be strong, little warrior," Kóhan said softly. "Fight until I return." The journey to the eastern hot springs pushed both man and horse to their limits. Kóhan rode hard, stopping only when absolutely necessary to rest his mount. His mind remained fixed on a single purpose, finding the healing plant that might save Nilchi's life. By midday, he reached the hot springs' misty pools, surrounded by unique vegetation that thrived in the mineral-rich, warm environment. Dismounting, he began his search, examining every plant that matched Nánhida's description. Hours passed. The sun began its westward descent. Desperation crept into Kóhan's methodical search. What if the plant didn't grow here anymore? What if he failed to recognize it? As shadows lengthened, he expanded his search area, climbing a rocky outcropping for better visibility. Near its base, partially hidden beneath larger foliage, he spotted a cluster of small plants with the distinctive three-leaf pattern Nánhida had described. Hope surging, he knelt to examine them. Purple flower buds, not yet open. When he carefully dug to expose the roots and crushed a small piece, the sharp pine scent confirmed his find. Kóhan gathered as many plants as he could, carefully, wrapping them in damp cloth to preserve their potency. Remounting his tired horse, he turned homeward, pushing for speed despite the coming darkness. Night had fallen completely by the time he reached the mesa path. The horse, exhausted beyond safety, had to be led the final stretch. Every step seemed agonizingly slow to Kóhan, his thoughts fixed on the sick child waiting above. When he finally reached the dwelling, Nánhida's face told him everything before she spoke. His fever burns hotter. He no longer recognizes us. Inside, Nilchi lay motionless except for the rapid rise and fall of his chest. His skin glowed with unnatural heat, his eyes open but unseeing. Beside him, Tarek sat in silent vigil, tear tracks staining his cheeks. "I found it," Kóhan said, unwrapping the precious plants. Nánhida moved with focused urgency, preparing the roots according to her grandmother's teachings. "It must steep until the water turns green," she explained, placing the crushed roots in hot water. Then he must drink every drop. While waiting for the medicine to prepare, Kóhan noticed something unexpected near. Nilchi's sleeping mat, a small painting rendered in natural pigments on a piece of smooth bark. Fever-dream images of animals, mountains, and flowing lines created a composition both childlike and strangely powerful. "He made this during a moment of wakefulness," Nánhida explained, following his gaze. His hands moved as if guided by spirits. He called it his other world. Finally, the medicine was ready. Together, they raised Nilchi's head, coaxing the bitter liquid between his parched lips. Most dribbled out at first, but gradually they managed to get him to swallow small amounts. "Now we wait," Nánhida said, her voice tight with exhaustion and worry, "and pray." Through the night, they maintained their vigil. Kóhan found himself praying to ancestors he hadn't addressed in decades, offering anything including his own life in exchange for the boy's recovery. Dawn broke with golden light spilling across the mesa. Inside the dwelling, Nilchi's fever finally broke. His breathing eased, his skin cooled, and he fell into restful sleep rather than feverish unconsciousness. "He returns to us," Nánhida whispered, relief softening the exhaustion on her face. Kóhan, who had not left the boy's side through the night, simply nodded. The band of tension across his shoulders loosened for the first time in days. Nilchi's recovery proved slow but steady. For a week he remained weak, taking only broth and fever tea. Tarek rarely left his twin's side, telling stories and describing the outside world as if his brother might forget it during his illness. By the time the first autumn leaves began to turn, Nilchi had regained his strength. The experience had changed him subtly. His eyes seemed older, his questions more thoughtful. The fever dream painting remained near his sleeping place, a reminder of his journey to the edge of the spirit world and back. With health restored, the family's attention turned to the approaching tribal New Year celebration. Among Apache bands, the changing of seasons from harvest to winter marked the annual cycle's end and beginning, a time for cleansing past troubles and setting intentions for the coming year. "Will we celebrate here alone?" Tarek asked one evening, as Kóhan taught the boys to make prayer sticks for the ceremony. "Not entirely alone," Kóhan answered. "Elder Tashima will join us. Perhaps others." Since the council's recognition of their family, occasional visitors had begun stopping at the mesa dwelling, mostly older people who remembered Kóhan's parents or who sought Nánhida's healing knowledge. The family's isolation had softened, without disappearing entirely. Preparations for the New Year ceremony occupied them for several days. Nánhida created a 4-direction offering, a specially woven basket, containing symbolic items representing gratitude for the past year's blessings. Kóhan cleared a ceremonial space near the dwelling, constructing a small stone circle for the sacred fire. The twins threw themselves into preparations with enthusiasm, gathering specific woods for the ceremonial fire, helping prepare traditional foods, and practicing the songs Kóhan taught them, ancient melodies, passed down through countless generations. On the eve of the celebration, Elder Tashima arrived, accompanied by 2 families who had broken from their main band over internal disputes. Like Kóhan years before, they sought a quieter path, following older ways with less political entanglement. "We heard you observe the old ceremonies properly," the elder of these families told Kóhan. "May we join your fire?" "All who come in peace are welcome," Kóhan replied, using the traditional response. What had begun as a small family observance expanded into a proper gathering. Children played together, while adults prepared the ceremonial grounds. The twins, initially shy around the newcomers, soon led the other children in games they had invented during their isolated days on the mesa. Watching them, Nánhida moved to stand beside Kóhan. "They need this," she observed quietly. "Other children. Community." Kóhan nodded, acknowledging truth in her words. "Perhaps we all do, in measured amounts." The ceremony began at sunset. Elder Tashima led the prayers, his ancient voice carrying surprising strength as he called to the 4 directions, to ancestors, to spirits of the land. The sacred fire cast dancing shadows across the gathered faces, connecting them to thousands of previous New Year fires across the centuries. Following tradition, each family presented their offering to the fire, expressing gratitude for specific blessings. When their turn came, the twins stepped forward with Kóhan and Nánhida, standing together before the flames. "For health restored," Nánhida began, placing a small bundle of the healing plants that had saved Nilchi into the offering basket. "For skills learned," Tarek added, adding a tiny bow he had carved himself. "For visions given," Nilchi said softly, placing a small piece of his fever dream painting in the basket. Kóhan stood silent for a moment, one hand on each boy's shoulder, Nánhida at his side. Then, in a voice rough with emotion, he completed, "Their offering, for family found." He placed a simple item in the basket, a small stone carved with 4 interconnected symbols. As Elder Tashima raised the basket toward the night sky before committing it to the fire, the gathered people voiced their approval with traditional calls. The celebration continued late into the night. Food was shared, stories exchanged, children eventually succumbing to sleep, wrapped in blankets near the fire, while adults talked in low voices. The atmosphere of community, something Kóhan had deliberately avoided for decades, felt unexpectedly right near midnight. He found Nánhida standing at the edge of the gathering, looking up at the star-filled sky. "Are you pleased with our celebration?" he asked, moving to stand beside her. "Very much," she answered. "It honors both tradition and what we've built here." "What we've built," he repeated thoughtfully. "A year ago, I would not have imagined this." "Nor I," she admitted. When I climbed your mesa path with 2 hungry boys, I hoped only for temporary shelter. Not for, she gestured toward the gathering, the dwelling, the life they had created. Home, Kóhan supplied simply. Yes, she agreed, home. As a shooting star traced its brilliant path across the night sky, their hands found each other, fingers intertwining in the darkness. No words were needed to acknowledge what had grown between them, as gradual and natural as the changing seasons, as undeniable as the mesa beneath their feet. Winter passed into spring, marking a full cycle of seasons since Nánhida and the twins had arrived at Kóhan's door. The mesa flourished with new growth wildflowers dotting the slopes, young animals appearing in forest clearings, the garden plot turned and planted with expanded crops. The family itself had flourished similarly. The twins, now in their 8th year, had grown taller and stronger, their knowledge of Apache ways deepening under Kóhan's careful instruction. Nánhida's healing practice had expanded to serving occasional visitors who made the journey up the mesa path seeking her remedies. Kóhan, once defined by his solitude, now moved comfortably within the rhythms of family life. One evening, as they sat together after the evening meal, Kóhan cleared his throat in the way that signaled important. Words to follow. I have been thinking, he began, his deep voice deliberate, about the boy's future. Nánhida looked up from her weaving, immediately attentive. What about it? They carry their father's name and lineage. This is right and proper. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. But a boy also needs a father in this world, not just in memory. The twins, playing a counting game nearby, quieted to listen. What are you suggesting? Nánhida asked, though her expression suggested she already understood. A formal adoption. Kóhan's gaze moved to include the boys. If they are willing. If you approve. Silence followed his words, not uncomfortable, but weighted with significance. The twins exchanged one of their silent twin communications, a lifetime of shared existence, allowing them to read each other's thoughts without words. Tarak, usually, the spokesman for both, asked, Would you be our father then? Truly? In the eyes of the people? Yes, Kóhan answered. Though your birth father will always remain your first father, honored in memory. Nánhida watched her sons absorb this proposal, their young faces solemn with understanding beyond their years. They had lost so much, adapted to so many changes. This decision belonged to them as much as to any adult. And mother? Nilchi asked, his voice soft but steady. What would she be to you? The question, direct and unavoidable, hung in the air. Between the adults. They had developed deep respect, genuine affection, and unspoken understanding. They functioned as partners in maintaining home and family. Yet neither had put precise words to what existed between them. If your mother is willing, Kóhan said carefully, meeting Nánhida's eyes, I would formalize our partnership as well. Not to replace what she had before, but to build something new. Nánhida held his gaze, searching for any hesitation or doubt. Finding none, she nodded once. I am willing. The twins broke into sudden grins, the solemnity of the moment giving way to excitement. Questions tumbled from them. When would it happen? Who would come? What ceremonies would be performed? Planning consumed the following weeks. Messages were sent to Elder Tashimo and to the families who had joined their New Year celebration. Kóhan journeyed to the trading post to obtain special items needed for the ceremony, rare pigments, specific foods, gift tokens for witnesses. Most important was the creation of a family beaded belt, sacred object that would symbolize their permanent union. Nánhida worked on it in every spare moment, incorporating 4 distinct patterns representing each family member. Kóhan's mountain design, her flowing water pattern, and unique twin symbols for the boys. The day of the ceremony arrived with perfect weather, clear skies, gentle breeze, the mesa in full spring bloom. By mid-morning, Visitors began arriving, not just those they had invited, but others who had heard of the event and felt drawn to witness this uncommon but joyful occasion. Elder Tashima presided, his ancient face creased with pleasure at seeing the culmination of what he had blessed months earlier. The ceremony began with purification sage smoke wafted over the participants, cleansing them for the sacred work ahead. The formal adoption came first. Kóhan stood facing the twins, who wore their finest clothing and most solemn expressions. "These boys I take as my sons," Kóhan declared, using the traditional words. "To provide for them, to teach them, to guide them into manhood. Their joys will be my joys. Their sorrows will be my sorrows. Their futures will be my concern until I walk the spirit path." The twins responded with the ancient acceptance. "This man we take as our father. His wisdom we will seek. His counsel we will honor. His name we will respect until we walk the spirit path." Elder Tashima bound their wrists together with sacred cord, first Kóhan to Tarak, then to Nilchi, symbolizing the inseparable bond being created. When the cords were removed, each wrist retained a red mark that would fade slowly, a reminder of the commitment made. Next came the partnership ceremony between Kóhan and Nánhida. They faced each other before the gathered witnesses, their expressions holding the gravity and hope of the moment. "This woman I take as my partner," Kóhan stated, "to stand beside, not behind, to honor her wisdom, to respect her strength, to walk together on one path until the end of days." Nánhida responded with matching vows, her clear voice carrying. Across the mesa top, the beaded belt was then presented, examined by Elder Tashima, and wrapped around both their wrists, binding them together as the sacred words were spoken. When the formal ceremonies concluded, celebration began, food and music, stories and games, continuing through the day and into evening. The twins moved through the gathering proudly, accepting congratulations and teasing with equal grace. As sunset painted the sky in brilliant orange and purple, the four of them slipped away from the celebration to stand together at the mesa's edge. Below stretched the valleys and forests. Above arched the infinite sky. Around them the land that had brought them together. "Are you truly our father now?" Nilchi asked, looking up at Kóhan with trust in his young eyes. "Truly," Kóhan confirmed, resting his hand on the boy's shoulder. "And we are truly a family?" Tarak pressed. "We are already a family," Nánhida told him gently. "Today we simply told the world what we already knew in our hearts." As they stood together on the mesa edge, silhouetted against the sunset sky, their shadows merged into a single unified shape upon the ancient stone. Four individuals become one family, bound by choice rather than blood, but no less real for the choosing.